you can't try to have your cake and eat it too. We hear that expression all the damn time. You know, every admonition of the artist's existence is one of never being there. You can never get there as an artist. You never arrive. You never have had enough as an artist, because as an artist, what you're continually searching for, what you're continually trying to do, is create more. So as an artist, since you always want more, you'll never get to a place where you've gotten there. You're never satisfied. And that's what kind of bugs me about people on YouTube who are like, the system is fucked, everything is bad, we have to make formulaic content. Yeah, that's the nature of the medium that you've chosen to stake your claim on. And whenever people say YouTube wasn't always like this, yeah, it kind of was. You liked the content better. You were at a point where the content that was formulaic was something that you enjoyed. It was, you know, YouTubers like Niga Higa, Fred, for some people, like Smosh, who's the other guy? Shane Dawson, you know, those guys, back in like 2006, 2007, you know, that their content was formulaic. Like, it was comedic, it was high effort, but it was still formulaic. They had a specific formula and voice to their work. Nowadays, I'm going to adjust my camera here because it's starting to slide down. Yeah, we'll just have it there. Nowadays, people look at so-called formulaic YouTubers and are like, this content sucks. Because most of the time it does. But that is the environment that has been fostered by YouTube's revolving around the production of capital. Everything changed whenever YouTube allowed us to monetize videos. Whenever that happened, you took the creativity right out of it. Because true creativity, true esotericism, and I've made a video about this as well that I'll link in the description. True creativity and esotericism cannot revolve around acquiring capital. It just fundamentally can't. Because you're starting to veer into that territory. My first year film professor, Catherine Hartman, I love her so much. It was a great class. She taught us this principle that is fairly obvious to me now, but wasn't back then, that every artistic piece has an artistic element to it and a generation of capital element to it, because you need to generate capital in order to make more shit. So it just becomes a matter of how much capital you want to create versus how creative you want to be. Because if you're going to try to be as creative as you can be, you're going to turn a lot of people off, unless those people think the same way that you do. The only people you're going to get in that audience are those who find the content that you create appealing, and if you put a lot of yourself into that content, you're only going to get the people who think the same way that you do. Whereas if you go something that's for broad appeal, if you're looking for something that's going to generate capital and generate an audience, you have to detach yourself from that creation. Like, throughout my time in college, I've had to write countless papers, not countless, 5 or 6. I've had to write numerous, I was going to say numerous, but I'm like, countless is a better word. No, numerous. I've had to write numerous papers that I've had to detach myself from. Like, I had to write a paper on Wind River that I really disagreed with. I had to write a paper on Interstellar that I really disagreed with. I had to write a paper on 2001: A Space Odyssey that I really disagreed with. You know, these formulaic papers that I just had to churn out to get a good grade on so that my professor would get off my back, you know? There have been other environments where I've been able to do creative things and get good grades for them, but you have to recognize the environment that you're in. You are on YouTube. YouTube is the most sanitized, curated, template-driven content creation site ever in terms of trying to become popular. I mean, there is no other place in terms of broadcasting yourself, which used to be YouTube's slogan. There is no other place where you can do that and have it succeed in such a formulaic way. You know, even stuff like the Netflix and Hulu stuff that we like to make fun of so much, even that innovated. I mean, shit like Game of Thrones that, you know, most people in my circle, in my headspace would disagree with or would think is a bad television show. You have to give it credit for innovating and for getting the platform to where it is today. been like this since the beginning of monetization. Because monetization is what drives a lack of creativity. The fact that we have to monetize things in order to survive is what drives people to not be creative. Because why be creative when you can survive and thrive off of not being creative, whenever it is necessary to survive off of not being creative? Log Horizon, and I think this is very important to look at. Log Horizon, an anime that showcases the power of what people can do when they no longer have to survive, is a great example of why this system fails. If you put a bunch of people in a society where food is no longer a problem, water is no longer a problem, healthcare is no longer a problem, resources that are necessary for everyday sustenance in life are not a problem, they can do really, really cool things, like build a society from the ground up, like create an egalitarian world where you don't have to worry about this shit, where you have equality, where you don't have a ton of like conflict back and forth. Capital drives all conflict. Unless, even going back to like hunter-gatherer shit, capital is what has driven all of this. So if you're going to look at YouTube and you're going to say, man, why can't I be creative on here and still make money? It's because you can't be creative anywhere and still make money. That's just how it is until, no, not even there. You cannot be creative anywhere and make money, because in order to make the creative stuff, you have to make money. You have to establish your ethos as a creator within a community. You have to do the shit that you don't like in order to do the shit that you do. And that's just how it is across the board. That's where it is everywhere. There are exceptions to the rule, but not everybody is an exception. You are not an exception. I am likely not an exception. The person watching this video, you are probably not an exception. I really hope you are. Like, if you got a creative project that you're working on and it's your life right now and you're barely sustaining yourself day to day and you need that to break, I really hope that you are. But the reality of the situation is that we are not. The collective we, the royal we are not in our capital-driven society. Because unless you have capital in this society, you cannot get anywhere. You cannot hire actors. You cannot hire staff on your show. You cannot publish your work. You need money to do all those things. So then it brings you back to the scenario. Well, how do I gain money? It's by doing the things that are unpleasant. Okay? You have to do those things. It sucks right now. You have to do those things. But let me tell you how we can change this. We create a society, we create a system in which that isn't even a consideration. Where if you want to do something cool, you go to, say, the government and say, hey, I want to do this creative project. It's probably not going to make a lot of money, but can you help me finance it? And the government says, yes, we will help you finance that. You know what country does that? New Zealand. I went to New Zealand this last summer on a film exchange excursion. There is a society or a government subsidy, I forget the correct terminology and language, that you can go to in New Zealand in order to promote local film creation and say, hey, I have this project, I'd like to get it financed. And most of the time, they're going to say yes. A lot of the creators that we talk to in New Zealand had their projects, had their their creative passions kickstarted by that program. So what we've got to do as a society, as a collective whole, like outside of YouTube, like creating another site to compete against YouTube is not the solution. It's just not. Because you know what? That site needs money. That site needs capital to run. All of these sites do. That's why every site that tries to come up and rise up against YouTube fails, because they need capital. And YouTube is taking all the capital. So we think that we've created our new creative oasis. It works well for like 6 months until we need to pay the bills. Then whenever we need to pay the bills to create bigger servers to give people money for creating on that platform, we're like, oh shit, we're out of money, and then we get bought out by Google, and then we get homogenized. That's how it is always. That's how it's always been for the last 10, 15 years whenever somebody's tried to compete against YouTube. They either die or they get bought out by another company that homogenizes them. So the problem, I will reiterate this again because it is exceedingly important. The problem is capital. The problem is capitalism. Okay? You follow me here? This just got political. It was technically political from the start, but the problem is capitalism. I'm going to add the ism onto the end there. If you want to create a scenario, a society in which you can create that which you want have it be popular and not have to worry about how much it would cost and not have to worry about how much money it's going to make, then you need to create a society that isn't capitalist. That's just how it is.